need one of these microphones. Hey, everybody. It is Friday, and Carter and I are back in the office for office hours. Thank you for joining us. This is our weekly show. We're on at 10 a.m. every Friday. Miraculously, this is our 8th week in a row.
It's hard to believe, right?
Yeah, especially after this week. Anyhow, we are the co-founders of Gateway. We're here at your will and answering your questions. And actually, this week, recapping on the Elevate conference a little bit. And I'm just going to let my mic do this.
It's one of those days, man.
It's one of those weeks.
Yeah. So my voice sounds weird because I've been sick as a dog since Elevate. So
yeah.
I apologize if I cough like an old man and sound weird. But
so yeah, just as every week, let's start with an announcement or two. Actually, only 2, not 4 like in weeks past. We are finally getting around to processing applications. So if you apply to Cohort 2, you can expect to hear from us in the next few days now, for real. And
Yes.
if you have not gotten your application in, as we announced at Elevate, you do have a couple more days. Let's just say end of the weekend, and then we'll just close it down.
yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Besides that, if you have questions or you'd like to follow this show, I believe there's buttons somewhere on this feed that you can press so you get notified when we are live. And then if you have questions, you can always reach out to us with the hashtag GatewayOH, or you can email us at ask@gtwi.co. That is now live. So let's go ahead and get started. I would like to spend the first part of the show just kind of recapping on Elevate. I guess I could put it in the form of the question. Well, let's save the question for later.
All right.
How do you think it went?
The show's sponsored by Zycam. I think it went well. A lot of good feedback from people. Obviously, there's things that I would want to improve on next time, but I think overall, the response was positive. I was proud of our companies, Again, all these things I could improve on in the pitches and the Q&A and stuff, but it went well. So we had demo day the night before Elevate, which was an invite-only thing for investors, and we did something that's kind of unusual, I think, for accelerators.
How so?
We just opened it up to Q&A from the audience.
Is that not typically done? I just felt it was the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, no, it was the right thing to do. It's not normal. Because normally they're trying to, sell their companies, right? They're trying to,
right.
put their best foot forward and, make everything very controlled and look really awesome. And but I felt like it was the right thing to do as well, which is why we did it.
Well, we've both been to those types of investor events before, and it feels a little bit like a dog and pony show. And when you're actually hoping to get good deal flow, you want it to kind of be unbiased, right? It's just these are supposed to be good companies. They're supposed to be able to stand on their own.
Yeah, and I detest those kind of dog and pony events as an investor. I detest them because I never really know what to trust.
Sure.
I think you and I are thinking of one in particular, which we won't name. But the guy in charge gets up there and pumps the audience up about the company before the company gets on stage and how awesome they are, and then the company does their thing, and then the Q&A is very controlled as well. The company leaves and they kind of internally decide who's going to ask what questions, and then they come back and ask a couple questions. It's just a very controlled thing, and I never liked that as an investor. But I don't know. Nice. You didn't even turn off your phone?
Well, there are notifications from the audience.
It's okay, man. But I think it was the right thing to do. Just open up to Q&A. Honestly, there was some Q&A that I thought could have been handled better by some of the founders.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it worked well with our overall brand, which is we're trying to just be transparent and straightforward about what we're doing, and
authenticity.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And I think it went really well, and the feedback was really good. So
yeah, the feedback has been excellent. So everyone that was involved, thank you very much. I'm super proud of our companies. The team that put together the demo day Elevate everything just went really well. Our own internal team with, us and Alicia, a lot of help from McKinley, the investing in cannabis team, Brandon and Eric, Corinne
came in
amazing,
and saved the day in many ways.
One person can do a lot, and the small team that we were able to pull together to do this, and all of our partners and
the volunteers. Corinne had a lot of volunteers that helped.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Canatech team strung together a bunch of volunteers and just had a small army kind of working the show. It was really cool. But during the show, and this is our first question of the show, it actually comes from one Carter Laren.
It comes from me.
Oh, is that you? Oh, sorry. So Carter Laren.
So this is the big surprise. You're going to surprise me.
Carter Laren asked me,
What did I ask?
Ben, should you be carrying that couch?
Yeah, I did ask you that.
And, actually, you asked me a couple. It's like, Ben, should you be driving that van? Ben, should we be unloading that van?
I have defense for this because I know what I know what your attitude is here.
Right. I mean, so this brings up
which is a great attitude as a founder, and I love it.
Sure, it brings up a good point, and actually, something that I struggle with a lot, in as a founder. So we could parlay this into a actual founder discussion. Is like, A, what's it take to be a founder sometimes, but B, like, when do you know it's the right time to actually like unload some of that stuff and delegate, and how do you balance that? It's I mean. I was just telling you this morning, I think I calculated it, and I had a 41-hour workday between Monday and Tuesday. And that's unhealthy.
Yes, it is.
But shit got done, right?
You're getting sick as well, actually.
I'm fighting getting sick.
Yeah. Well, look, so just to provide some context for everyone. I mean, you were doing a lot of things with Elevate that... helping move furniture and doing, a lot of like little nitty gritty things. And that's the right attitude to have as a founder. And obviously you and I have had this discussion before, right? If you're not willing to be the guy who cleans the bathroom, then you're not really a founder. I mean, even our keynote speaker, Adeo Resi, I remember when I first went to the Founder Institute, one of the first things that I saw was like, Adeo outside sweeping leaves away from the front door.
Yes.
Right? And so that attitude of like do whatever it takes as a founder is super healthy. However, my point about the couch is that I wanted you to go hang out with a cohort because there was something else that was more important that anyone could move the couch, not anyone could go be with the cohort at that moment. And it is a thing that I know we both struggle with. I think in different areas, I'm more willing to let go of certain things and less willing to let go of other things, and the same is true for you. And it's hard to, as a founder, delegate and let go of something and trust that it's going to get done, especially if you've been burned before. And we have been burned before, or burned all the time, actually. It's very hard to find competent people who will
as Adeo says,
move the couch correctly, for example, right?
To quote Adeo, it's like, everyone's going to try to F you, right? Like,
right.
And whether they're trying to or not, it happens.
Right. And, frankly, I mean, I didn't tell you this, but I went back to the van the night after Elevate, or that Wednesday, or whatever night it was, Tuesday night. And there was a chunk of wood missing from one of the couches. And I thought to myself, if Ben and I had moved this couch, there wouldn't be a chunk of wood from this couch, right? So, see, right. So, it is a thing. However, you do have to, when you have to find someone competent and you do have to eventually let go and realize that, maybe your couch is going to get dinged, but you need to be doing the more important thing. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's where that comment came from. Yeah. But I totally sympathize. I empathize with it, actually.
Just kind of broadening the discussion. I did start thinking about it. I'm like, I think I was joking around. I'm like, look, I can carry 2 of these couches over my head, but if I ask interns to do it, it'll be 3 of them carrying 1 couch and putting it in the wrong place.
Right.
No offense to interns. I love you guys. But that being said, it's like, maybe there is a certain point where paying those 3 interns to do that and then paying them to then go correct it is still worth your time doing something else.
Yeah, I mean, when you have no money, it's not worth it.
Right.
So for many founders, for a long time, they're carrying the couches and doing whatever. But yeah, at some point, it becomes worth it. You have to realize, you have to start thinking about what your time could be spent doing. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not going to get done as well as you wanted,
yeah, I kind
it might be better to have someone else do it. Sometimes,
from our standpoint, we're coaching startups every day, right?
Yeah,
and like for them to be able to see our hustle, day after day, I think
yes,
it's like lead by doing, right? It's just like
it is lead by doing, and I agree with that, and I think for the most part, startups should be carrying their own couches and doing all that stuff. So I'm not in disagreement with that, and I think that the message that what I would give to our founders, I would never tell one of our founders, or maybe some of them have raised enough now that I would say this, but generally early stage founders, I wouldn't say hire someone to move the couch. I would be like, move the fucking couch yourself, man.
Yes.
This is your startup, right? But yeah, at some point it makes sense to focus on the right thing. And it's easy to get overwhelmed as a founder, and there's always stuff to do. And it's, I used to describe myself as a control freak. I still am a control freak, but I just stopped saying that. But it's hard to let go, and I think there's something healthy about that, frankly, for a founder.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It felt really good to put down that couch and then go grab dinner and drinks with the cohort and celebrate. And it was Chris's birthday, and that was just.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been there at all for Chris's birthday.
I do appreciate that from you. So
I'm glad,
because I think I would have just kept running around until the entire conference was broken down.
No, you would have, right? Yeah. That said, I got back to the office and was kicking myself for telling you to go because I was like, oh crap, other stuff isn't getting done and blah blah blah. But
it's okay.
It all works out. It's actually quite difficult to find people who are super competent and on it and care about stuff in the way that you do for your own startup. So if you can find them, hang on to them.
Well, we should talk about that actually. We haven't broken into the realm of like hiring and what it takes and like the difficulty that it is in building a team. So it wasn't a question, but let's just go into that. Like,
sure.
I've heard numbers thrown around where it's like, 30% of your time all the time goes towards hiring, like whether you're hiring or not. And that sounds like a lot. I mean, if I were to chunk up 30% of my time, like
it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time and time I don't have to give.
Yeah.
But it is really hard to find that person. And I think when people get their first round of funding, this is a major challenge because all of a sudden they have $2 million that they want to spend and, hire a team and grow their sales department and all that kind of stuff. Like, what's your experience been with that? Like, what advice do you have for people that are now embarking on this journey of like doing their first hires? And
well, I mean, you're right. It's way harder to hire than you would think.
Yeah.
It's like an order of magnitude, if not more, harder to hire. I used to basically say, I'm always looking for a good person without like my methodology used to be not to be hiring for a particular role, but just the right person, no matter what the role was.
Yeah.
And so I used to just spend a lot of time. I mean, probably not 30%, frankly, but I used to spend a lot of time just, trying to find the right person. And if I found someone who I thought was great, I would try and create a role for them. I mean, in a startup, you're typically not hiring for a very narrowly defined skill set at first because you're still in this mode where everyone has to do everything. And so you need someone who has the passion, can learn really quickly, and like basically cares, right? And is a good cultural fit and is going to work their ass off and can learn. So that's, just as an example, right? Maybe you need someone who knows Node.js, right? But if they know everything else, maybe they're like they've only done PHP or some other stuff, but like they Ruby or whatever it is, but they don't know the Node framework. but they're great in every other way, I would more likely hire them than someone who's done a lot of Node stuff, but that's all they've done, and you don't think that they're likely going to be able to learn quickly and branch from there. And
Sure.
so, I mean, hiring, it's a good idea to always have an open rec for the right person.
Yep.
That's kind of my...
We
but not one particular job, just the right person.
No, I'm thinking back to when we brought Alicia on, our executive producer of Gateway OH.
Right. We didn't know she would be doing this.
Right, exactly. But I remember telling her, I'm like, all right, so we have like this crazy like Venn diagram of like things that we need done. Maybe it's these 3 interlocking circles. It's like marketing, office management, something else. And I know that no one person can do all 3, but you have an awesome skill set, and I think you can at least cover, maybe 1.5 or 2 of these.
Right.
And it was just like, yeah, there's been some learning experience. It's just like kind of been doing that for us
Absolutely.
both, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, she helped us really discover what was like helpful and what we needed, and kind of like, now it makes hiring the next like several people that much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I mean, at some point you have to start, obviously you need to have some kind of differentiation, right? If you really need a salesperson, hiring a programmer, probably not the right thing, right?
True. True.
So I'm not trying to say just hire anyone, any skill set, but
Make a position.
yeah, but I mean, the thing I'll say about hiring is, when you're giving equity, when you're giving stock, usually in the form of options, typically the way that works is there's a 6-month cliff and a 4-year vesting period.
Right.
As a result, you can actually be more generous than you think you can be with options usually. And the reason for that is, first of all, they don't vest for 6 months at all. So if it turns out the person was a bad fit, you don't lose any stock.
Right.
Assuming that you get rid of them quickly. And even if they were okay, and it takes you 2 years to kind of phase them out or whatever, and you only lost part of the stock, right? And so the truth is, if they're performing really well, you're going to be happy with the amount of stock that you gave them anyway. So I mean, I would say give them options as if that they're a star performer, and then just be sure to fire them if they're not a star performer.
Right.
Right. Which hiring and firing kind of go hand in hand. I don't want to like be the downer here, but firing is also super, super important for a startup. And we can quote a Deo on firing, which is, when should you fire? The moment you think, I wonder if I should fire that person.
Yeah.
Like that's when you fire them.
Hire slow and fire quick, right?
Yeah. And so it sounds heartless, but you need the help. You need every hire that's not exactly the right fit for your startup is decreasing the odds that it works out for everyone else in the startup. So, you kind of owe it to your startup to make sure you've got the best team possible. Yeah. And when you figure out that that's not true, you need to fix it.
So there's a lot of tricks to like digging in and trying to figure it out on the front end, right? Like, but a lot of times you don't know what you're getting into until you really like are working with someone. The reference check is a big part of this. And like, are there certain questions that you like to ask references that you think kind of peel back the onion a little bit more than the typical question?
Had I been prepared for this, I would have pulled that. I have a document that I wrote, which is a reference check document that does have questions, but I don't remember what they are off the top of my head.
One that I've heard you use before, and I've started using it as like a must ask, is like, okay, well, I'm going to be managing this person directly. What kind of advice do you have for me to be most effective with this person?
Yeah.
And I feel like it catches them off guard, because they aren't expecting it. And then sometimes they like start saying things that they don't realize are like revealing, because if they're a reference, they know they're a reference, and they're going to try to like do good by whoever they're referencing.
Right.
But you start asking some of these digging questions, like hypothetical, like, help me manage this person better, and like starts peeling it back a little bit. So
that's true, because it puts them at ease. It gets them in the mindset that you're going to hire, so they no longer feel like they're required to talk the person up because they feel like they've gotten over that hump and convinced you to hire.
Right.
And so now you're talking to them like manager to manager and just asking for advice. And so it does kind of lower their guard a little bit sometimes. Mm-hmm. I forgot that is one of the questions. The other thing that I do or like to do when I can on reference checks is I ask for secondary references. So if someone gives me a reference, the end of the call, I usually say, "Oh, who else worked with this person or knows this person? Can you put me in touch with them?" And now I'm going off script, so to speak, right? I'm like going off the trajectory that the applicant intended for me to be on,
right?
And sometimes that can be really good.
Is that legal? Why not? Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah. I asked a reference for someone's name. Sure. They give me a name, and I call them up. Yeah, sure. It's totally legal.
And people usually give you a name?
Yeah, usually they do.
Okay.
Yeah, usually they're like, "Oh, yeah, so-and-so." I'm like, "Okay, great.
Interesting.
Introduce me."
Yeah.
So that often catches them off guard as well, because references don't expect that.
Right.
And so because they're caught off guard, you usually get actually a pretty good unbiased person, because they don't already have lined up in their head like, well, if they ask me for a reference, I'll give this person who I know will say rosy things. They're not thinking that, so you just like, who else worked with this person, and they just kind of blurt out the first name that comes to mind, and often that's an unbiased name.
Okay.
Not always, but
cool. All right, well, that was a very large tangent.
I know we're
Multiple
in a weird
tangents.
mood today.
Yeah.
I feel like something's off today, but it's
very off. I was telling Alicia earlier, I'm like, I just hope I speak in complete sentences.
Yeah.
Which is not guaranteed for the rest of the show. All right. So the great thing about Elevate is I got to meet a lot of people that I had kind of know tangentially, but never met in person and never got to interact with. And actually, some of our biggest followers from the show got to meet in person.
We got to meet Michael Finkbeiner.
Yeah, and the Canon Naturals team, sitting right next to each other for me. I was literally sitting in the theater, and I ran into Michael, and he was on my back left, and then we started talking, and then the gentleman on the back right was the Canon Naturals guy, and it was this moment where it was oh my God, these are my people, and and then Brandon was on stage, and he was like, raise your hand if you've seen if you watched the Investing in Cannabis show.
Oh, did he? I missed it.
Yeah, 75% of the people raised their hands. I'm like, we got together an amazing crowd of people that were just all focused on the same thing.
It was a great conference, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did the panel with Morgan Paxia and Patrick Ray, and which was the one that was fire alarmed out.
Right. That conversation was pure fire.
It was. I don't know if Morgan will appreciate me saying this, but let me just say this about Morgan. The man has a dirty mind, and backstage, I'm telling you, I
don't know if he wants you to. I don't know where this is going. Red flag.
Morgan, man, dude. He almost had us doing some crazy things on stage, but
I don't know.
He looks so.
I don't even know what that's inferring.
Morgan, he just looks so straight laced and nice, and totally. I don't know. He looks like a straight arrow, right? Morgan's of the people in the industry. He dresses well and he looks clean cut and nice.
Poseidon asset.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Dirty mind.
All right. Well, we'll have to.
Sorry,
I guess
for
we're
revealing
going to
that,
save
Morgan.
that for another conversation.
No, not on there.
All right. So
yeah,
it
was fun. It was a fun conference.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I had a very clean conversation with the people I was sitting with.
Maybe I'm the problem. I bring it out in people.
The show's going off the rails. All right, happy Friday, everyone. Okay, so lighter topic. The Canna Naturals team. You can find them on Instagram at Canna or KANNA Naturals. Basically, asked how do we keep up on the industry? Where do we get our cannabis news? I know. I mean, every morning.
Shameless plug for us.
Marijuana Today Daily. Shay Gunther is like an awesome, like, just, it's a quick way of getting the news of the day, right? It's like audio blurb. I think it's about like 5 to 10 minutes long every morning, and just quick download on what's going on. I'm a huge like podcast fiend, so obviously the Investing in Cannabis web show, although I listen to it as a podcast. Can Economy, Marijuana Today weekly, the weekly show. Like, yeah. I listen to all of those. What are you kind of keeping up on?
I mean, I like the podcasts. I also, there's a lot of publications out there that that you can read that have stuff. I mean, I feel like New Cannabis Ventures has a shit ton of content.
They do.
A lot of content. So that's like
great SEO
if it's
too.
not there,
like,
it's probably not happening. I feel like
that's true. That's true. And it actually, Alan's actually been starting to come out with a lot of like unique content that other people don't have.
Yeah.
Which is great to see. They're about a year old as well.
Yeah. So that's a good repository. And then everyone has mailing lists, right? So you can always be on mailing lists.
When it comes to mailing lists, Alex Halperin does a really good job with Weed Week. I don't know. I kind of like, it's pretty long, like, but I kind of scan through and look at like the hyperlinks and see what they're,
I mean, I think with cannabis, as probably with anything, but I mean with cannabis, you need to scope what you're paying attention to, right? I mean, if you're in California, legal developments in Michigan might not be that relevant,
sure,
right? So, scope, narrow your scope a little bit so you're focusing on stuff that really matters to you.
Yeah.
And then, Patrick's giving me the evil eye because he loves Michigan. Michigan's relevant no matter where you are, apparently.
Actually, Michigan has been relevant in the news in the last couple of days. Aaron.
That's true. Maybe that was a bad example. But,
what about kind of like the nexus of like startups investing?
There's not a lot of startups and cannabis combinations out there.
It'd be hard to have a daily repository of that kind of information.
Yeah, I mean, even just the startup world is too much to pay attention to.
Yeah,
by itself. So, look, I think maybe this is controversial. I think founders spend too much time worrying about with all this other shit. Like, other than legal developments and kind of major things that are happening, don't waste your time. Like, focus on your business.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of people who just get distracted. They spend hours a day reading about stuff, and they're up on every latest development and everywhere. And, like, that's important, and it's great. But, unless it's directly relevant to what you're doing, your time is probably better spent building your company.
Yeah.
Pranav's a guy, for example, who, like, he's up on anything that has to do with seed to sale tracking and those regulations. But outside of that, I don't know how much. Maybe he's up on other stuff, but my guess is not. My guess is that he, pretty narrowly focuses on that aspect of the industry and anything that is related to it, and it makes him an expert there.
Yeah.
And that's what matters for his business.
So speaking of, and I don't know that one place people go to for information and keeping up with the industry are conferences.
Yes.
Which the Elevate conference is awesome, and anytime that happens, maybe twice a year, who knows? We'll see. I think people will mandate that we do it at least again.
Yeah, no, it's
which
it was a success, so we're gonna have to do it again.
We will have to do it again. Other people will have to do it again.
Right. You're gonna have to carry couches again, man.
No, I'm retiring from the couch carrying game, I think. But we have a special relationship with conferences, right? We didn't want to necessarily do the Elevate conference initially.
I know. I feel like we're in one of Dante's levels of hell. But I'm not sure. Like
purgatory, or
I don't know. We
had lower.
Yeah, no, lower. I mean, I feel like we had this we're never gonna do you and I looked at each other several months ago, and we're like, "There's too many conferences in the industry. We will never do a cannabis conference."
Yeah.
And then we did.
We did.
And we think it was necessary.
Yeah.
And apparently it went well. So.
But where do we sit on how to best utilize a conference, when to attend them? I honestly, and this is like counterintuitive to us supporting a conference, is like, I honestly tell a lot of startups, like, don't bother with conferences unless it's absolutely necessary.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a nuance to that, right? It's the reason that we gave. So founders got into Elevate for free,
Right.
right? And that's part of. It's related to what you were saying. I don't think money should be spent on conferences as a founder, generally.
It's also a lot of time, though, right? It's like
A lot of time, a lot of money, but like buying a table or booth or whatever and having it staffed and blah, blah, blah. Like, in general, I don't think it's
unless
usually
there's,
not
like,
relevant.
specific like sales or like some sort of
Right. There are conferences where it does make sense, where you have a B2B product and your exact customers are there looking for products like yours. Like then it can make some sense. But in general, I don't think the money should be spent on conferences. Time probably shouldn't be spent either. But it's one of the reasons that we gave. It's one of the reasons we gave founders a free pass. So, sorry, I'm now hearing. I'm hearing the Nest Cam.
Oh, is that
That's
what
that is? Yes. So
Okay. Are there small children in our
yes, there
office?
is. My daughter is now also sick, and she's downstairs.
Well done,
on
Dad.
The couch.
You got your daughter
great.
sick.
So, and I'm
alright.
spying on her with the Nest Cam, which
We will all just spend the weekend in an infirmary.
yeah. But I mean, the conference thing, like getting back to what you said, I think speaking at conferences is super important.
Yeah.
Again, citing Pranav, it's something that he's done. He's positioned himself as an expert in the space, and he started speaking at a lot of conferences, and that can be super valuable. But I would never pay to speak at a conference, and that's something that I think is. I don't want to say it's unique to the cannabis industry because I don't know that many other industries, but it doesn't happen in the startup world.
I did find out where it also happens.
Where?
In like the investing world, like kind of like
You pay to speak?
There's these family office events where the entire speaker lists are all sponsored. It's weird. It's like you're trying to.
Oh, you're right. I have seen that. Yeah.
Like they tried to get us to pay like I don't know, it was like $5,000 to speak at this conference. I'm like, wait, everyone that's speaking paid?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're trying to provide this high value conference to these high net worth like individuals, and like all it is a big marketing thing. Like it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So in fact, we got a little bit of flack from the industry at Elevate because we had people who expected speaking spots by sponsoring. And we tried to decouple very deliberately speaking versus sponsoring, because we wanted the content to be something that we felt was relevant, and we picked the people who wanted to speak. I think there were a couple cases of speakers who happened to also be sponsors, but like it was very decoupled. And I think there was kind of this expectation from people that like, oh yeah, we'll sponsor, and when's our speaking slot? I was like, no, that's not how this works. Like the content is more important than sponsorship money. And yeah, I hope that the industry generally goes that direction. That's one thing that I like about Elevate, and that's something that will always be true if we do another Elevate. This is not about marketing someone who's paying us.
Yeah.
Right. This is about providing good content, and so those two things need to be decoupled. And I think one of the reasons that you have a lot of repeat content in a lot of other conferences is precisely because you have service providers or whoever who's like, oh, I just pay $5,000 every time and I get a speaking slot. It's like, all right,
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well,
maybe I wasn't supposed to say all that.
No. I mean, honesty is the best policy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of content. Is there anything you would like to talk about? I'm always the one asking the questions.
Well, no, I mean, I think I would like to hear from founders how they think the conference went, frankly, because this was really about us trying to provide a value to founders of startups.
Yeah.
So, I'd love to find out from them how it went and what we could do better, because that was kind of the purpose of the conference.
Yeah,
So,
it was actually funny when we were talking to Adelia from Direct Cannabis Network, also a great source of information. Sorry,
Oh, yeah,
I forgot
yeah.
that one earlier. And she was asking us like, "How's it going? How do you think it went?" And we're like, "Met expectations." It was It was like the most lackluster answer. It was just like
yeah. Well, I don't know how it went until I hear from the people that
true startup form, right?
went. Yeah, yeah.
Like it only goes as well as your customers say it goes.
Right. And so that was super important. That's super important for me to find out how they liked it. I don't know. Maybe they hated it.
I don't think so.
But
I've never seen a conference auditorium full for an entire day.
it was packed. Yeah. It was. So there's some good signs.
Great.
But
I think we're bound to this whole like outdoor expo thing though now.
yeah, probably.
Which
Yeah.
might make us bound to the Oakland Museum, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. This one's kind of like complete off the
Okay.
chart from the other ones. So Michael was asking, Finkbeiner was asking, with the evolution of like all this consumption and like the laws and stuff, and like, the ability to kind of like measure intoxication and all that, like, where is that all going to go, and like how is it kind of how's it going to evolve, and like, I mean, is it going to catch up, do we think, like anytime soon? And
You mean like measuring whether you're driving under the influence, for example?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really complex question, right? Because I feel like we've talked about this, but maybe it wasn't on air. Everyone's body responds differently. I think, from at least anecdotally, from my experience, the variance is much bigger than with alcohol. And so determining whether you're impaired while driving or not, I think is actually quite a difficult thing to do chemically. It's because, like I said, everyone's body responds differently.
I actually saw that even here in Oakland, someone had released a breathalyzer test that could tell the difference between recent consumption and, like, I don't know. Yeah, it could tell whether you had recently consumed or not, which still like does not
Doesn't
get
actually,
to the point, right?
Right. I mean, I'm a lightweight, right? So, I shouldn't drive if I've smoked a joint. I absolutely shouldn't be driving.
Yeah.
I know people who probably drive better after smoking, and their tolerance is just much higher than mine, and so, yeah, I think that's actually a complex question, and I don't know where it's going to go, but it is going to have to be solved, especially as we go to adult use. Hopefully in November in California, we're going to have there, because if we care about people driving under the influence of substances, marijuana is going to fall under that category of being under the influence. And
I mean, I don't know. I'm just to speak extemporaneously about it. What do you think those like metrics need to be, if like, because it is so complicated and everyone's bodies are different? And
I would prefer to see performance-based tests.
Yeah.
So you know how they had the kind of old alcohol test before they had breathalyzers?
The sobriety tests, right?
Right. They would like walk a straight line or do this or do that. Like performance tests seem more relevant to me. I don't know if those are the right performance tests, but some kind of performance test where you can see like, okay, you're functioning well. How you're functioning well is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
You're functioning well. Right.
I think I saw Mike Manning was made a comment online at one point. He's just like, if I hear about your company producing a breathalyzer, I'm going to kick your ass. And I mean, it's actually a good point, because like there's no way a breathalyzer's ever going to like be the accurate. I mean, I don't believe that like a breathalyzer is going to accurately determine whether you are capable of driving or not.
No, I don't think it would. The flip side of that is, well, maybe this isn't the flip side. Look, accuracy doesn't actually matter with the public often, right? We have the TSA. Does it make us safer? No. But it makes people feel safe.
Yeah.
And so, there's often a market for things that actually have no real value, but they have the appearance of value.
Yeah.
And so I could absolutely see someone like, you could see this at the state level, some legislator saying, oh, we need this breathalyzer test to make sure that, we don't have crazy people on the streets,
I feel like with the advent of like augmented reality or virtual reality or something, you could like throw on a headset and like check like.
Ooh, can you actually drive?
Yeah.
Like throwing a like the like a driving game on a headset.
Exactly.
Like, here you go.
It's like boom, right there in the field. Just throw it on. Hey, there's a startup idea for someone out there.
Yeah. Drive.
Yeah, drive.
Let's see how you drive.
Yeah, and like it could track like how your reaction times are and like how accurate your reactions
Yeah, that's
are.
Ben. I like that idea, and I would support it. And that is the right kind of sobriety test because it's testing exactly what matters, which is
Right.
can you drive?
Yeah,
Yeah.
seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. There you go. Someone do that and apply to Gateway.
There you go.
Ben will like you.
All right, with that, I think we'll wrap it up.
I have a daughter who's not happy. I can hear.
I
so
can
need
hear.
to
I
make
think
sure.
you owe her some ice cream or something.
I do. Poor kid. I got her sick. Someone got me sick at Elevate. Damn it! And now you've sickened a small child.
I think that could have been the lack of sleep.
Possibly. Yeah.
So this has been the Elevate Recovery episode. We'll be back next week for our ninth episode
Yes, with more energy, I promise.
with more energy and more direction, hopefully.
Yeah. Let's hope.
But yeah, thanks again for joining us. We love being here. Had an amazing week. Thank you again to everyone that was a part of Elevate. I couldn't have asked for a better week and a better culmination to the first cohort. Super excited to bring in this next cohort. And
Yeah. And now we can talk about our cohort. They've been launched publicly, so now we can kind of
I
talk
can put them
about
on the website.
Absolutely. We can put them on the website.
Yes.
We can talk about them on the show. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excited about that.
All right. Well, tune in next week. Same place, same time, same hosts, hopefully.
Better content.
Better
Let's hope.
content. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys. See you soon. Man.